Ayan, live na tayo. Andyan pa ba kayo? Ilan araw na tayo hindi nag-usap. Mukhang nakalimutan nyo na naman yata ako Ayan na naman tayo eh. Ang dami nangyari. Dami natin chine-check around the world, yung developments sa Europe, sa around the world. Tapos biglang boom, meron palang mga nanonood ng Ant-Man dito sa atin. At mukhang nagla-life decision na pagdating sa alam mo na, di ba? Na manood na Marvels and then biglang may mga life decision daw. Ito daw yung mga ito daw yung mga latest development. Alam mo, aminin ko medyo minsan parang boring na mag-analyze sa ating elections. To be honest, alam mo bakit? Hindi dahil, sobrang high stakes siya. But parang naman ayaw naman makipagsali, ayaw naman makisali yung iba dun sa mga debates. Ano na mangyari dyan, di ba? Kaya minsan parang nakakawalang gana naman. Siyempre gusto mo naman makita yung lahat ng kandidato, andyan sa debate, nag-exchange ng ideas, etc. Ayan, kita niyo, mga pagod pa rin yung itsura ko. Although hindi ganun kaganda ng lighting, hopefully in the future, ayusin natin yan next week. Medyo mas fresh pa tayo, di ba? Medyo grabe yung schedule natin over the past month. Kita nyo naman, di ba? Meron pa from inside the train, going through Germany, Alemania, from Paris, Eiffel Tower, meron from Barcelona, kung saan-saan sa Espanya, sa Munich, ganun. So, medyo sorry, kailangan natin mag-rejuvenate. Kailangan natin ng medyo recovery. But ito, balikan natin to Grabe naman yan. Kaya sabi ko nga parang nakakawalang gana minsan yung ganun style na hindi nagpapakita yung iba dyan dahil porkit frontrunner na sila sa survey, ayaw na magpapakita sa mga debates kasi baka, di ba, maano yung ano nila. So, biglang nalaman natin, ayan pala, may bagong interview series pala si Tito Boy So, tapos na sa mga kandidato. Ngayon naman, nakatupag naman ni Tito Boy yung pamilya ng mga kandidato, no? So, interview niya yung mga anak, interview niya yung mga, si Romelo, nang lahit ka na. Interview niya yung mga asawa, ganun. At yung nakita natin latest, mukhang yung isang kandidato, may time talaga Netflix ba to? Over Netflix ba to? Nanonood ng Ant-Man at may decision bigla sa buhay, diba? Ganun. Wala namang masama na mag-Netflix, kahit naman sino, kahit nagtatrabaho kasi Tatay Digong, di ba? Nag-Netflix din daw siya. But, wala na akong issue dyan. Ang issue ko lang is, anong ambag mo in general, especially during crisis, especially when yung mga ibang candidates, Leni Robredo, Isko Moreno, other candidates have been very active trying to help people around the country, being in charge of vaccination rollout. Kita nga natin kay Isko, nag-rollout sila ng bagong ospital, condominium, etc. Si Vice President Leni Robredo all across the country, launching all sorts of different initiatives. So yun ang, wala naman problema ng Netflix. Yun lang sana, hindi lang puro Netflix at chillax lang yung buhay natin, di ba? Especially if hinahanap natin yung medyo mataas na position, no? So yun, so wow, di ba? So, kaya, sige, sabihin natin comment tayo dyan. But let me have a little bit more serious discussion with you guys. Seryoso yung Ant-Man, no? Although yung mga in fairness sa mga ant, hardworking ang mga ants, no? Very hardworking ang mga ants. But, yun nga, pero ano yung kwento ng Ant-Man? Parang nagnakaw ba siya ng suit? Ano ulit yung kwento ng Ant-Man? Hindi ko na maalala Ninakaw niya yung suit or something, tapos nag-shrink na siya, gano'n. Anyway, saan tayo? By the way, ito So, itong week na to, kahit pagod na ako, gigising ako ng sobrang maaga kasing time zone differences na yung Europe-Philippines, 7 hours. Ihabol natin yung mga columns natin. Yung isang pinag-usapan, yung role ng youth, no? So, let me put it this way. One way na nakikita ko yung framing dito sa issue ng dominance of Bongbong Marcos sa election na yun. Eto na, mag-name drop na tayo. Pag-usapan natin. One way for, a lot of people, especially from elder generation to say, bakit malakas si Bongbong ganon, is because, etong mga bata, walang walang direct memory of martial law or walang pake sa history, kasi science, so on and so forth, yung ganitong arguments. So dahil sa kanila, ayan, malakas na mga Marcoses among other things. Well, I have contested that line of argumentation for quite some time, because if you look at the exit polls in 2016 elections, actually Leni Robredo did very well among millennials. Tignan yung exit poll ng SWS 2016 elections. Hindi yung mga haka-haka, hindi yung mga generation bashing ng lalong-lalo na yung mga titos and titas sa Manila. Diba? Tignan yung mga actual voting pattern ng mga millennials. Yung mga ka-age natin. At saka yung mga, alam mo na, medyo late 20s to 30s, mga ganon. Pag titignan mo, actually, Lenny did very well among them. And Bongbong Marcos was not as dominant among them. So I said, where is the evidence to suggest that? Na ang mga kabataan na may pakanan na biglang lumalakas ng mga Marcoses, at sila daw ang, sabi daw nila na uto-uto daw yung mga bata, naniwalang ganun-ganun, etc., etc. So, I've been contesting that. Nonetheless, we are looking at some interesting new numbers that are coming in, especially about the next generation, Gen Z, no? At mukhang malakas talaga si BBM sa Gen Z, tignan natin some of the numbers. I was looking at the numbers. In fact, if you look at it, ito, Pulse Asia survey ito, so, people aged between 18 to 41, yung mga audience natin, tayo niyan, 18 to 41. Uy, grabe naman kayo, bata pa ako eh. Mga haggard lang yan. Ito yung mga prime movers sa election nito ayon sa Commission on Elections, no? At they constitute between almost 60%, so 56% out of 65.7 million voters sa election na yan. So malaking role ng mga kabataan, which goes from 18 to 41 depending on how you want to define it. Kasi may mga young leaders programs sa World Economic Forum, mga others na kahit mga 40 na they're considered as young, no? I mean, President Zelensky of Ukraine is considered young, but I think 40 na siya, di ba? Si Isko Moreno, 50 na, pero bata-bata pa rin tingin sa kanya, or that's how some of the people are describing him, especially those who don't want to vote for him. Even though mas matanda na siya kay Sara, and okay sila kay Sara. Anyways, balikan natin yan. So, ayon sa Pulse Asia survey, this is interesting. If you look at the January survey, yung lead ni Marcos kay Leni, ay pinakamataas sa mga 18 to 24-year-old. Anong generation po yan? Mga Gen Z po yan. Hindi na millennial yan. No? Although may konting overlap yung upper limit sa lower limit ng millennial. But I think millennial na yan eh. So, I'm sorry, Gen Z na yan, no? So mukhang sa mga Gen Zs, ang lakas talagang lead ni Marcos Jr., no? The lead progressively goes down as the age group changes. So, in the age group of 35 to 44, yung lead ni Marcos ay mas mababa. Hindi na siya, is below 50% na. And pagdating sa mga mas matatanda, 65 and above, mga senior citizen na ito, yung lead ni Marcos is at the lowest in terms of demographics at only 23 points. No? So, mukhang this election is different. And looking at the data, mukhang the youth factor is important. And bakit ka mahalaga ito sa discussion natin, mga Ant-Man, yung mga ganun? Because I think this is the first TikTok elections in Philippine history, or perhaps the first TikTok elections in the world. In a sense that we see the preeminence of TikTok-style campaigning, which really appeals dun sa mga Gen Z. No? Kitang-kita natin yan. I mean, there's just something about TikTok. The colorfulness, the versatility, the very short attention span that is just needed, the whole cool factor and projection, entertainment, and music and all that makes it very appealing, especially sa mga Gen Zs. Habang yung Facebook naman ay medyo para sa mga mas matatanda, di ba? IG also is more for the Gen Zs, but we don't see the IG, yung Instagram, being as relevant in terms of political campaigning, especially in these elections, no? But definitely TikTok is very important. Kaya nga, you can describe actually the Bongbong Marcos strategy in this election as TikTok politic, no? Paano natin na-describe? So I have a new column this week whereby I talked about Marcos nostalgic populism and how TikTok politics is a very, very important element in this, no? Um, so if you look at it, what's happening there in TikTok? It's really all about projection, entertainment, cool factor, chill factor, yung anodyne, friendly, uh, all of this whole simulacra, no, over really substantive discussion, over really, intense ideological debates. And that is why I'm not surprised na, certain candidates rather have their campaigning just on TikTok and all, rather than, engaging in debates where they're going to be really put under pressure to respond to other candidates, to rivals. They're going to be under scrutiny, etc. So nakikita natin yan. And yes, I actually joined TikTok. I'm not that active, so I just repost some of our analysis here there, yung mga snippets lang kasi ilang minutes lang naman pwede mo ilagay. So may konting understanding na ako of how the TikTok works, no. So I'm not looking at it just as a social scientist, let's say, or a journalist, but I'm looking at it also as someone who participates in TikTok. To a very limited degree though, pero base dun sa very limited observation ko. If you look at the Marcos camp, they're really good in terms of what I've always called this cool factor projection. And if you look at Bongo Marcos, he kind of he has the cake and eats it too. Bakit kamo? Kasi on one hand, pag tignan mo si Bongo Marcos, di ba? Maamo, sobrang relax. Minsan parang medyo K-pop yung dating, yung mga damit niya, very bagets. Tapos yung hairstyle, the way he talks, the smile, the pacing of his explanations, etc. Yung ayoko ng kaaway, no supposedly black campaign against anyone. That very much appeals to this image projection kung saan parang pinapakita ng BBM na, tingnan mo, mabait kami. Hindi naman kami tyrants, dictators, ganyan. We were just being demonized, etc., etc. I think that works very well, especially with the younger generations. That kind of image construction and strategy, and I think all of this Ant-Man, Marvels, mga ganon, yes, pinagtatawanan ngayon and all, but look at the effect that it actually has. It actually makes the whole thing funny, entertaining, so actually pushes the more substantive ideological issues to the sidelines. So it still serves the purpose, no? Kaya nga dito makikita mo talaga yung crux ng strategy ng the Bongbong Communications team, no, which is just keep it chill, avoid the most controversial issues, avoid really combative debates and putting yourself in a tough position, focus on TikTok style messaging, curated, entertaining, light on the magaan sa mata, magaan sa puso, lahat, di ba? And it's working so far to a great degree, and especially among the younger voters, na are really natural digital people, unlike some of us who had to adopt it a little bit later in our life, no. So I think this is something very important. Kaya pwede mo pagtawanan itong issue ng Ant-Man and Marvels and all of that, but I think it's all part of an overarching strategy, and that is this what you can call TikTok politics, and should the current trend stand, then we could have the first, you could call it vlogger president, even for that matter. I mean, have you seen yung mga vlogs ni Bongo Marcos? Nakita niyo ba yung mga vlogs na sa YouTube? I mean, the way it's curated, it's so cool, it's so relaxed, and what it projects, di ba? Kaya nga, ang daling kung mag-claim ng kung ano about the past, imagine glories of the past and all of that. Kasi, hindi threatening And it's very, very relatable, especially dun sa youth, among others. Alright. Okay, marami na mga galit yata sa akin dyan. Lalo mukhang haggard ako ngayon. Di lalo niya akong bubuli na naman ako So yun, I just wanted to a little bit share on this point of view. I'll develop further this argument, but I think it's really really an observation that I think we have to build on. Yung talagang itong TikTok politics style na ito At ang lakas ng dating niya sa mga kabataan. Let's not forget though, I mean, yung voter turnout ng kabataan ay isa pang issue. I mean, it's one thing for you to be eligible or even registered. If yung issue ng magpakita ka ba ng election day, let's see, no? Especially with the pandemic and all of that. So let's see. But clearly, based on the numbers we're getting in this election, yes, the youth factor is really helping the Marcoses. The youth factors, the distance from the martial lawyers is really helping the Marcoses. But that was not the case in 2016. I don't. That was not the case with millennials. I would argue, right? I think Jesus Scudero and Lenny did well with the millennials in ways that Marcos didn't do as well, no? And then the other interesting thing makikita mo sa mga ibang surveys is that Lenny is actually doing well in NCR. In fact, I saw one survey when Lenny is actually leading in NCR. It's a very close fight, 2.5-way fight. I mean, like Marcos, Lenny, and then a little bit of Isco there in NCR, which is interesting because I think Lenny was not doing very well at all in the previous elections in NCR. But it's really in Mindanao. So there's also the Mindanao factor here. The Mindanao is hugely behind Marcos, and Lenny's not doing well at all in Mindanao. And that also may explain the gap there, no? So there's also the Mindanao-Sara all effect factor. Now, lastly, let me close this discussion and then we'll have some interaction. Nakikita niyo naman, Haggard. Sana medyo mas guwapings tayo sa next disc, mas fresh tayo. Balik nga ako sa trabaho ulit eh. I need to finish some stuff. Of course, you can guess ano yung mga focus ko recent in terms of writings and all this. Of course, what's happening again in Europe. Mukhang there are some indications that kind of a compromise could be in the making kung saan Ukraine could drop yung constitutional commitment and aspiration to join NATO, potentially some concessions also on Donetsk and Donbass and those areas, and then at the same time Putin may reconsider his so-called special military operation